on here. Okay, there's the sound back. Now, could you put me in colour? That's better. And what about these here? Pillars. Get these pillars out of the way. Come on. Okay, let's get started now. The silent era. People would be just amazed at how influential the period had been for film. From Metropolis to Chaplin to Keaton to Lloyd, all have been influential on cinema and its creation. All have been a big impact and influence on future filmmakers, and still some today. This video will be split up into two, because I don't want to really make it too long or bore anyone. I'll probably bore you anyway, but you know, whatever. So yes, the video will be split into two, with this first video being number 25 to 11, and the next video 10 to 1. While I have 25, there's still some I'd like to mention, and I'll probably do that at the very end, because there's so many great films out there that I still want to talk about, aside these 25 that are my favourites. I'm going to include shorts as well, but not that many. There'll be no one-reelers except for the one film, which I won't tell yet. And without further ado, here are my top 25 silent films. Nanook of the North. The reason this one makes the list is because of how groundbreaking it seems to be in the genre of documentary filmmaking. The film examines the life of Eskimos, and to think that director Robert A. Flaherty spent a year with an Eskimo family with his camera is quite impressive for the time. Today we have documentary filmmakers such as Werner Herzog and David Attenborough who travel the ends of the earth, but here we are seeing one of cinema's first documentaries that try to show the audience the world. It is still interesting to watch because of what we see in the film, ranging from the making of an igloo to the patience required for ice fishing. If anyone out there wants to be a documentary filmmaker, this is definitely an essential film to watch. Coming in at number 24 is A Trip to the Moon. This is the first film in the 1001 Movies to See Before You Die book, and there's a reason. The film is now 112 years old, and it's still playful and fun to watch today. At only 12 minutes, it is an easy watch, and in this short runtime it captures fantasy and adventure very well. Georges Méliès was one of cinema's earliest wizards and pioneers, and I love the imagination in this little short film. This is also the film of reference in Martin Scorsese's Hugo. A Trip to the Moon, I would say, is an essential film for anyone interested in the history of cinema. Number 23, Safety Last. I had the pleasure of seeing this for the second time in a local cinema, and it was absolutely wonderful to see it again on a big screen. Harold Lloyd is sometimes known as the third comic genius next to Keaton and Chaplin, and it is easy to see why. Here the character is relatable much like Keaton's characters, and the comedy is absolutely great. The final 20 minutes of this one is what makes it so enjoyable and memorable, and it is surprising how on edge it has you. As we see him hanging from the clock tower, which would go on to be one of the most famous images of the silent era, we hope he gets out of this situation safe. Safety Last is an iconic silent comedy that hasn't lost its comedic value. Number 22 is Sherlock Jr. Many call this one of the best silent films ever made, and that's because of how endlessly enjoyable and funny it is. Buster Keaton put real dedication into making this one, doing things such as practicing pool for 4 months for one scene in the film, and performing his deadly stunts. Keaton's character is a projectionist who dreams of being a detective. After being framed of stealing a watch by another man for taking away his girlfriend, he puts his skills to the test. His character is down on his luck, and we can't help but feel bad for him because we know he's innocent. The scene that has made this film go down in cinema history is when Keaton enters the cinema screen. With extremely clever camera and editing techniques, Keaton captures the magic of cinema as a realm of fantasy and escapism. Overall, I think Sherlock Jr. will keep people laughing for years to come. At number 21 is Chaplin's three-reeler, A Dog's Life. This is one of my favourite Chaplin short films, and that is because of how clever and funny the slapstick is. We see the tramp struggling for survival in the inner city alongside with the dog. The dog works well as a symbol that our tramp character here is living in the same conditions as this dog, which is one thing that still makes it a strong message today. Aside that, it's a very funny film, but also sweet. Steamboat Bill Jr. This is another fine Buster Keaton comedy. Keaton plays William Canfield, the son of an esteemed riverboat captain who comes to be part of his father's crew. He has not seen his father since he was a baby, and his father is disappointed by the sight of him when he turns up with a pencil moustache and a ukulele. After this, William begins to fall in love with his father's business associate's daughter, which starts outrage. Once again, Keaton successfully makes his character likeable, and makes a character that you root for. You can't help but feel bad for Keaton's character in this, and it works well emotionally as well comically. The film has great physical stunts once again, with one scene being the most memorable, the cyclone and the flood scene. This scene is absolutely amazing, and all of it is real. A real set was all destroyed. One of the best moments in this scene is a well-calculated stunt where the front of a building falls on Keaton. He strategically placed himself where it would fall on him and he would pass through the window. Watching it is both shocking and funny, and that is the heart of Keaton's great comic style. Number 19 for me is The Circus. This was Chaplin's hardest film to make due to all the personal stress, with the death of his mother, a studio fire, and the IRS claiming he owes taxes. It is amazing to think all of this was going on, delaying the production of the film, and yet the film is very well made. The tramp is running away from a police officer after being mistaken as a thief, and ends up in a circus tent where the audience loves him without him knowing it. He soon gets a job at the circus but fails at first. He soon covers for another person and once again becomes the head of the show. There's also a romance story involved when he befriends the ringleader's stepdaughter, and all this makes it a touchingly funny film. One of the finest moments in the film is when he gets locked in a cage with lions. The scariest thing about it is he really was in a cage with real lions. All of Chaplin's great dedication to filmmaking pays off here, and this makes The Circus another hilarious work from Chaplin. Battleship Potemkin. Ultimately, this film is pure propaganda that is heavy-handed with its message that it's aggressing. However, the film should be appreciated for its innovative editing style and a powerfully unforgettable scene that would be referenced to in other films. I am talking of course about the Odessa Steps scene. Although heavily dramatised, the scene will have your emotions invoked with a powerful message of a woman and her injured child as she stands up against soldiers. Sergei Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin is a film that still politically engages with its audiences and will always remain a fascinating film to watch for its historical importance. The Last Laugh tells a simple story of pride and dignity, but it is how the story is told that makes it so great. Alongside the great performance from Emma Jennings, a famous star at the time, F.W. Murnau makes this film stylistically wonderful. The German expressionism of the film can be seen all over it. The plot is about a doorman working at a hotel who takes pride in his uniform and job. The hotel's insensitive new manager, noting that Jennings seems winded after carrying several pieces of luggage that are heavy for a patron, he decides that the old man is no longer up to the job. The manager demotes Jennings to a washroom attendant, and the effect is disastrous on the man and his prestige and self-esteem. The idea is quite stretched out, but I think it works very well as a melodrama. The camera is the device that tells this story, and it gives it an expressionistic rhythm that still makes it fresh to watch today. With zooming, panning, jump cuts, crossfades, and total freedom of camera motion, all of it makes it a wonderful watch now. At number 16 is Seven Chances. For me, this is one of Keaton's absolute best, and this really begins to show in the second half of the film. James Shannon learns that if he gets married by 7 PM tonight, he will inherit a great fortune. He has in mind the girl next door who he is madly in love with, but doesn't think she wants to. The film follows him in his attempt to get a bride. The physical stunts in the film are hilarious and daring. This is one of Keaton's funniest films, and scenes such as this are an example of why. Watching him be chased by hundreds of angry brides is hard not to laugh at. A Man There Was. This is a lesser known silent classic from director Victor Seastrom. This tells the story of Turgey, a sailor who ends up being kidnapped in the fate of another man. Later in the film, he has to decide whether or not to avenge himself when this man and his family need help. At an hour long, this film is surprisingly emotional and is a somewhat look at the human condition of torment. Turgey undergoes great pain and misery, and there isn't much that he can do about it. This is a melancholic but powerful film. Number 14 is horror classic Nosferatu, a symphony of horror. Nosferatu is still one of the most spine-tingling films to watch, fascinating in its craft and style, and a landmark for the horror genre. This is essentially the first full vampire film, directed by legend F.W. Murnau. The film put the company Prana Film bankrupt after a lawsuit by the daughter of Bram Stoker, the writer of the Dracula novel. This was due to copying the book without permission. It is fascinating to consider this, and makes you wonder what films would they have made if they didn't go bust. At number 13 is The Calendar of Dr Caligari. This is said to be the first film to begin the German Expressionism movement. The visual style and tone is brilliant. The jagged edges and set design and lighting are all ahead of its time, and were certainly fresh at the time. This is a Frankenstein-like story, all set essentially in the flashback of a crazy man. The film has the atmosphere of a nightmare, and is easily one of the best silent films that would go on to influence directors such as David Lynch and Tim Burton. From legendary filmmaker Fritz Lang, Frauen Monde is a sci-fi epic that deserves more attention. Slow in its pace, but patient and thorough in character development, the film looks at space travel and exploration. The acting is great, and the visual effects and set design are beautiful to look at. As I said, it is a slow film, but it is great to see how greatly the film sets itself up before the voyage, making you really care about every character on this journey. Like Lang's other sci-fi epic, Metropolis, the film ends with a somewhat lesson of the dangers of scientific development and discovery. At number 11 is Wings. As the first film to win the Best Picture Oscar, this film will always be loved and cherished. The romance, the friendship, and most of all the innovative special effects make Wings timelessly entertaining. The plot concerns two friends' journey into World War I as aviators. The director William A. Wellman had been in the war himself, which definitely comes across in the gritty realism the film has to offer in some places. The special effects are mind-boggling for the time, and show true dedication to filmmaking. The two lead actors had actually taken flying lessons so they could place the camera on the plane and film them for real. There's no backdrop trickery to be seen, which really adds to the impact of these scenes up in the sky. Wings is powerful, charming, and a film certainly not to be forgotten. Thanks everybody for joining me in my Top 25 Films Part 1 video. Be sure to comment and subscribe. Would love to hear some of your favourite silent films and what you think of the list. Stay tuned for Part 2.